deal with what we are gonna do for the future for solar and battery ordinance, so, we'll go from there. Any thoughts from either of you two to start off?
Yeah, I think, as we look at where we're at with the overlay district that we just finished for, wind ordinances, we just need to consider what we've done and make sure it complements what we've done there, and really keep in mind what we're doing with our overall comprehensive plan for the county. I think that's extremely important to us, and I know that probably needs updating, the comprehensive policy, that needs to be in the forefront of our discussions as we talk through this.
I think it does need to complement the comprehensive plan and the overall goal and things like that. Was talking a little bit about solar and battery storage with Jack Hedgecock. I don't know if you know Jack or not. He offered his area of expertise in a career length of energy distribution and transmission and generation and everything like that. He said he would be more than glad to help out if we had something that needed further explanation or further unpacking. He said he also is affiliated with a group that has the technical abilities to really unpack and really diagnose and look at different things as well. And he said if that could be needed, or if that would be needed for the county, he would do everything in his power to help out in that way, so.
He's formerly with Alliance or something?
Yeah, I know he had history with Alliant Energy, and then he was the GM here at the Mount Pleasant Electric Utilities. And that he's a personal consultant on his own now that he retired. He said he does some consulting work.
Okay.
He did not indicate he was looking for a job or would, cost money for his help. I mean, he said he's a county resident, be glad to help if he could, so.
Okay, so a good reference.
Yeah, I think you'd be a good person to maybe unpack some of the things that we don't need, that we don't necessarily know all the details about.
Okay.
I'll ask this question, do they need to be taken separately, these two portions at all? What differences are we be looking at?
Yeah, they should be separate. They're complementary, but they're different.
I think they can be different animals depending on what they,
How you
intended purposes and things like that.
How we would structure it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you say that, Joe, do you mean that we should look at those two independently, but, and in the end, the result would be part of being the overall alternative energy ordinance?
Correct.
Okay.
So do we want to start with one, and how we differ, or how we need to add to what we've already had?
Yeah, and we can do that, yeah.
Well, solar's first, and I think that's the one more at the forefront for everybody, so start that
Just
discussion.
kind of focus on solar right now and kind of work
Yep,
through that one.
see how far we go today, and
Yeah, because I do have a hard stop, but we need to leave about 11:15, make another appointment.
I agree.
Okay. We and I
have-
talked about that, so.
I had some surprise visitors that I wasn't planning on. Didn't know nothing about.
You mean like that commercial on TV where your aunt skinned with it?
No, with some children.
Well, that's always a good surprise.
Yeah, it is, great. One drove in from North Carolina and brings after the other one right now.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Solar, go for it, guys.
Dave, you like to start? What you got?
Now, generally speaking, I'm talking generally speaking, I think solar would be more digestible and more easily accepted by the public because of it doesn't as drastically change the landscape. I think people might look at it too as like, oh, I could put up a personal solar array as well and benefit directly from that. That might open some doors on the energy use of citizens too.
Okay, with that statement, Joe, how is that different from what's happening right now with those?
Right now, those two are two separate. Right now, we treat solar, residential solar, and individuals, like, I can forget who out here off of, Barton Lane business there, who put solar panels in their yard for the personal business, it's not really commercial settings. To that, we treat those as accessory structures. We treat them like a garage.
But what I'm saying is, people will, maybe as they learn about solar a little bit, think, okay, industrial scale may not be a good fit, but personal use arrays might be a more fitting need or a more fitting use for people, so.
So what you said about Jack Hedgecock, would we wanna cap before we start this type of ordinance?
My understanding is, right now, we're talking about commercial solar farms, large scale.
Do we have a
But
definition
where,
of what that
yeah,
means?
where does that start at? What
Like,
starts
kind
a
of-
commercial farm?
Like we did with wind turbines, so we said 100 kilowatts, so what starts Mark's farm? Where's that breakout between a residential and a commercial? Do we know that, or have we just defined that?
We haven't, there's no formal definition right now. I'm looking at it as if you're putting it on your residential parcel, it's a residential solar.
But I think we can define that, because we went back to, Access Energy, and that's where we got the 100 kilowatts. You know, that's what they said, if it's more than 100 kilowatts, you've gotta have a contract with them in order to feed it back into the system, because they've already signed their leases and they know what they're buying for the year, so it's not one of those things where you can just hook up and say, hey, I'm gonna sell you whatever's left over.
Well, right now it is with residential, you can hook up and tell them what you're gonna sell back to them regardless of your scale.
Yeah. So that's my point.
Yeah, I think
Where do
there's
we-
probably one definition for that.
Solar
from
is,
what
solar
my
is
conversations with Access
different.
Energy.
Solar is different, you don't remember when you don't get a lot of residential wind. We've got one in the county, and it's pretty minor. Well, there's a couple, but only one of them I know that actually functions. Some of them are old and haven't turned in a very long time.
Okay.
But the solar, we've got several solars throughout the county that are mostly residential in nature. A lot of them are ag. Of course, we don't regulate ag solar. If you're putting it for farm use, there are no regulations. If you're putting it on your residential parcel, if it's roof mounted, we don't do anything with it at all, because it doesn't change the footprint of the structure. So we don't even regulate roof mounted solar. And ground mounted solar, we treat it the same way we treat a garage or an outbuilding. The setbacks are the same.
As long as it's used for the residential,
Right.
the primary residence.
So, or if it's used for an individual business, the same thing, we treat it as an accessory structure with the same setbacks.
But there has to be a point where that
Yeah.
tips the scale the other way.
Exactly. I'll connect with the folks at Access Energy and
If
see if
you
we
would,
can.
you can look into that.
Yeah, I've talked to those guys a couple times in reference to this, so I will get back to them and see if they can
One
provide.
issue. So then, my other thought is if we do what we've done on the wind, we would have to look at setbacks and things like that, and I think that's what you were alluding to, is completely different.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got the
Those are both
setback section here, and, we can go through that and see if there's anything.
Is there something we need to go, if we start here at the first, and first of all, is there anything on that, having pretty well knowing what this is? Is there anything that stands out at us that we need to be looking at that we need to be different, other than setbacks?
Well, I think just for the setback portion of that, we probably just need to make sure that we're a little more comprehensive in our discussion there, where we define what the purpose of the ordinance is. Was it fourth line, where it just talks about wind development. The intent of this ordinance is to ensure wind development should be more comprehensive. It should be more like wind, solar, and battery. Because this is the first line of the overall district that ties into solar at section 3, right?
If it's all bunched together under the one, I think we could namely call it
Call it
solar
out.
and battery energy and wind energy.
You just wanna add the words there between wind, just wanna add the word solar and battery storage.
I think so, so we're a little more comprehensive in the definition and purpose. Does that work for you guys? That's a good start. And then I'll follow up, as I said, on the definition of what commercial versus residential is. So at least we have those definitions now.
So who do you reach out? Do you talk to the engineering or do you talk to the GM up at
No, I
Access?
talked to the engineer.
Okay.
His name Jason or something, I think.
Yeah, I forget what his name is.
But that's who I talked to on the wind turbine thing.
Yeah.
He's pretty helpful.
Then we have the decommissioning and that sort of anything you'd wanna change on that?
Yeah, I think there's some definition that needs to go in there, at some point. Maybe not. Yeah, I think it's kind of the same thing that you're talking about there, Mark, so it should be more comprehensive when we talk about all components of wind energy is what it says, but it should be more comprehensive to include solar and battery.
You know, when we talk about adverse sounds and things, is solar or battery storage, are they known to create
Some vibration?
the sounds? I know I was some reading and it's above my technological understanding on the operation of the transformers and things like that create a hum, and everybody has heard a transformer hum
Yeah.
to some degree, but is it really known to be a problem?
I don't think it should be any different, it should still tie into what we're talking about with decibel levels and noise.
Yeah.
It should be comprehensive in that nature.
Well, I think it would need to have to comply with the standards and everything, but I've never really heard of that being a problem, so I don't know much about that. I mean, I haven't read much on,
I think to your point, there's definitely a humming noise, I don't know how that falls into the noise portion of it, whether it's that low frequency or if it's more of a high pitch. Think about what you hear and what you're seeing.
I'll show my ignorance on this one on battery. Do they have to keep them cool? Is there a noise factor that way? I would have thought that they would have to have refrigeration.
There's,
I'm seeing lots of nods out there, but I don't know. I actually don't
So
know.
that is something I think we need to look at, is the noise as far as refrigeration, you know,
Noise.
and
Cooling.
The ones I've been around, you know, at least audible, I don't notice any audible noise coming from the solar field. Been around a couple different large ones, and I haven't noticed any, like, there's nothing audible. But they're also, the power being fed to a, you know, to a transformer substation.
Right, at some point, yeah.
And that substation, right now we treat those substations separately. Substations are a conditional use permit. So do we wanna change that? I don't, that's something else to discuss right now, that any substation, any new substation that would be built in conjunction with, you know, a solar farm would be a conditional use permit through the board of adjustment.
Yeah, I think
We've
we
never
prob-
actually done one. It would be a new,
We probably need to understand what the size of a substation usually is, cause they give us a definition basically when we were talking about wind turbines.
Would that be
That'd take
something
one or two.
you would find out there?
I can maybe ask, Access.
I
on
think
that
that's
one as
gonna be dependent on, if it's a 40-acre
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
he might have an
Yeah.
idea of what
But
would.
40-acre solar field as opposed to an 800-acre solar field, that
Sure.
substation's gonna be
Yep.
significant.
We can also talk to Bruce Svensson a little bit on that, cause they're working with Wise County on those two big projects, and I think they're also working a little bit with Lee County on the one down by Weaver. So if I don't get, I'll just check with both of those guys to make sure that we have a better understanding on the substation aspect as well. Okay, good point. As we look through that, one of the things that came to me in talking to a friend down by Lee County on 16, where he's just recently went in, is that from the highway, you see them obviously, and they're not very appealing, but he said that when he goes into that field, he can tell the difference in the ambient heat, the temperature. It's about 10 degrees difference minimum from being like outside that field to the inside of that field.
The research I did said it varies between 5 and 7 degrees ambient.
Yeah, and he said at
ambient
least 10,
increase.
yeah, so we're in the ballpark
As opposed to this parking lot has an ambient increase of about 35 degrees.
because of the asphalt.
Because of the black asphalt, so just to put that in perspective, it does create what they call an urban heat
Yeah.
element, which, same thing you get around town from
Sure.
all pavement.
A little bit of difference though would be, we're talking, what, 1,000 square feet versus 40 or 80 acres or whatever the case may be. So the heat dome would be a little larger in that perspective.
Larger, but probably larger but less intense.
Yeah, less intense, but pretty good amount.
I believe Iowa State is working on some ambient temperature issues. They've got some research into that right now. I don't know if they've come to any conclusion. I don't think they have, but I think they're in the process.
So you have a concern with that though, or just a comment? That's what I'm trying.
Maybe both. I think I have a concern with it because we don't know what that's gonna do from an environmental aspect, number one. And number two, if we have I don't know if there's any research that tells us, but to the point, if we have a 40 or an 80 acre field that has, or an 8,000 acre group, I don't know how that affects everybody or affects the total environment, because it goes back to the comprehensive plan again.
I'm just thinking, if you're talking that, how far does that spread out to
I don't know.
affect the
That's a
neighbor
good question.
corn to pollinate?
Well, and I know that we get
I mean, just.
evapotranspiration, yeah, with the corn, but, that's kind of conducive to where we're at with a comprehensive plan. We know that's gonna happen, but we don't know what's gonna happen if we have an 80 acre field with photovoltaic type cells in there, and we're creating more heat. I don't know how that's gonna make the, I don't know, you said there's some
Yeah,
research
there's
going
some
on.
research going on. I don't think there's any conclusions. Some of the information has that it may have a positive effect. What that is, I haven't gotten that deep into research. So,
The winter, possibly.
Well, it could be. Today it might not be a good thing.
so that's something to keep an eye on and see, what kind of conclusions they're coming to.
ISU research.
I can see who's running that research.
If there's any good general information just for reference, that'd be great, yeah, if you wanna do that. And I'll follow up with Access on the other two items. Anything else on decommission? I think there are a couple of items under decommissioning, just as a general rule, we can get into more detail, but, when we get into the other sections.
When they build these, they typically put them on steel posts, don't they?
They get driven into the ground.
Driven into the ground that could be pulled. I don't know if they got concrete bases around it or how that operates.
I think it depends on whoever's
Put
the
them on.
owner or of the construction that's putting those in. Because I've seen some down, on 16 where they just drove in the ground, and they're like 4 4 to 5 feet in the ground. But then I've seen some of the others down by Lee County, or in Weaver, where they did do concrete, but that's probably more sandy area. I don't know for sure exactly what the difference is, but that's the plan. They say they can pull those posts. But I think as we just go through all of that in section 2, 6 to 11, 2, I just think anything that has a reference to solar, or I mean wind at this point, we should make sure where it ties into solar, because I think we've done a decent job of picking some of that up as you look on page 130 and 131, where we talk about solar. We don't mention battery, but we picked up some of the solar stuff.
So we all on the same page, are we still under the decommissioning aspect of, on 129 and everything that goes with that? Do we, at what point in time do we talk about property line setbacks, you know?
Well, I'm gonna wait till we got to the next section,
Okay.
section 4, where it really pops in. But yeah, you're definitely right, we do need to talk about that.
And I'll be first to admit, I'm gonna change the status, but I have not been around a lot of solar arrays, period. I'm gonna work at changing that and just kinda educating myself on some of it anyway, that I can, by visiting and talking with people that, adjacent to them, and get ideas and concerns and things like that, so.
Yeah, we don't have a lot, but again, you know, we can get to Des Moines County and CFU as well as
Yeah.
Lee County. They should have a pretty good, at least a good understanding, because they've got several, and Louisa County's got several, but they've got bigger ones coming in, and they've got a project that is potentially gonna be 8,000 acres as it buffers up against Muscatine County. So, but Louisa County's kind of a bedroom community, not a lot of people, not a lot of industry, so, and they're looking at it from a different perspective.
So do they have something written already?
They do, yep. When it comes to solar, specifically in Louisa, because Chad Hudson and his group wrote that, or not Chad, Bruce Hudson and his group wrote that, yeah.
And what we have,
Do you wanna see a copy of that? I'm sorry.
what we have mirrors a lot of what the county did anyway.
Does it?
Yeah. So we're on for one another.
Yeah, that's what we normally
That's
do.
how it happens. Okay. But I'll get a hold of Bruce.
Yeah, setbacks and so on are
Pretty simple.
pretty similar, yeah.
Okay. Because I know the Southeast Iowa Regional did Des Moines and Lee, right? So those are significantly different than what we had.
8,000 acres,
Yep. That's the big plan.
that's
It's a lot of
yeah,
ground.
that's a lot of territory. Now, then, I mean, that kinda brings up, I know Louisa County, Muscatine County, Sandy Bottoms, things like that up there.
Huge.
Around
It's
the
huge.
energy plant and everything like that, there's.
That's square miles. Okay. What do you wanna look at next?
Kind of hit section 2. Anything else in section 2, Chad? Other than just making sure we have those references back to, we reference wind today, but we need to reference solar and battery in those sections. And then you have a definition there on wind energy conversion systems and what a wind turbine is.
So you're saying there at the bottom of 131 is what you're looking at for break-off point or whatever we need to be looking at.
Yeah, not necessarily a breakoff point, but complementing that so that we have the same type of definitions in there for solar and batteries so that we know what we're talking about and there's a good straightforward reference to what
Okay.
those are.
Now that was showing, I'll say again, my naiveness on battery. Is that at a lower point than it would be for the other?
I don't know if I can answer that because.
I think that's something we need to look at.
I'll ask Access and Bruce and see if they've got some definition. But to our point a minute ago, this very specifically says when conversion is 100 kilowatts or greater. And that kind of goes back to our discussion. And that's why I think we need a breakout there so that we can look at both solar and battery and
I was
understand that.
telling Mark, battery technology is changing dramatically and very quickly.
Right,
What they were doing 5 years ago is not what they're doing today.
understand, yeah.
They've changed significantly, and their safety is increased because they're doing, a lot of what they did early on was take warehouse type situations and install battery racks into these warehouses. And what they found was that once one caught on fire, and it were to overload,
Chain.
it chain reacts to the whole thing, and now they're basically putting them in containers, like a shipping container type of a structure, so that it can be contained to that one particular unit. They're installing igniters, so they have gas that's coming out from the battery. They can ignite that gas right away and burn it off as opposed to it getting out into the atmosphere. So like, they're doing significant movements forward. I think those are just gonna continue as they get more and more data on how these things function.
Yeah, well, I think that just brings up a good point though, when you look at batteries, obviously you need some kind of a containment system so that you're not getting any leakage from those batteries into the soil, hazmat type of a thing, so that we have ourselves covered in those types of applications as well. It's pretty significant when you think about what we're talking about here size-wise. So, and to your point, technology is changing, but there's still always bad opportunity for something to happen.
That's, and anything we do, there's bad opportunities for everything out there, so.
You know, if a person puts a fuel tank up, there has to be some type of, I mean, we had to put up some type of containment, you know, fuel containment. I know it's not
Out there.
liquid, just
Same
speak
thing.
of, but yeah, I mean, some type of containment system around that to ensure that it's contained right there versus leaching out.
When I put mine up, it was only over 2,000 gallons, it had that container. So I'm looking at that. When you talk to Access about what would create 100 kW, you know, as far as acreage or battery type, you know, so we can go from there, if we have a starting point or
Sure.
it goes along with where it becomes a commercial entity.
Okay. Taking notes, but yes.
And I'm gonna throw this out now, we talked about it, just these standalone things, should we, when we run these together and all lump them under the alternate energy
Overlay ordinance.
overlay type thing,
Mm-hmm.
it almost seems like, for my mind anyway, it'd be easier to have 3 individuals laid in there than the connective tissue, the commonalities between them, all discussed for the overlay, you know, versus bouncing back and forth from battery to solar to wind. You know, if we spoke specifically about, you know, solar energy on this one, everything solar energy, and then everything wind, you know, and everything battery, and if there's hydrogen down the road, each individual thing, then where we can put that connective tissue on how they all connect.
I think section 2 are, is
3.
everything,
Yeah.
but section 2 is everything that is common
Yeah,
to
between
those,
those.
to those things.
Yeah.
And section 3 is what's specific to solar, section 4 is specific to wind.
Right.
We can change section 5 to be specific to
Solar.
battery and down the lane.
Yeah, I think that's a good approach,
I
Jeff.
like that too.
Yeah. But to your point, yeah, we haven't quite gotten into the detail yet, but I think from a comprehensive standpoint, what we talked about helps to tie it all together from a beginning, from 6 to 11.2, so that we can get into the specifics on section 3. And that's on page 136 here. So, yeah, I don't know if you guys have anything else then in section 2. Chad?
Not right now. I'm sure something will come up, but
Oh, yeah. No
Yeah.
doubt, right?
don't mean to.
No, that's fine. I think you made a good point. It sounds like a good plan to follow with the 3 separate divisions. Um, 6 to 11.3. You're looking through where we are, I don't see a whole lot of,
I'm looking at that, on this setback, on that, number 2 there,
What page, John?
136.
you know, under,
The,
okay, which one?
the very first one,
A?
towards the A.
Mm-hmm.
50 feet. I'm just looking at a safety standard as far as, do we need to get the sheriff involved in that about knowing how far an incident could happen off the right of way?
By incident.
Let's say a car goes off the road and you go plowing in.
That's our setback for structures, which would fall the same thing. I don't see that any difference between a car hitting a house or a car hitting a solar array.
I'm just.
Bringing
But-
it, it's
but-
the same, it's the same
That might
setback.
be, but if it was a commercial entity, it might be a little more catastrophic. That's what I'm looking at. I'm just trying to roll all this through my mind to protect the county.
That's our, and our commercial setback's even less than that. Our commercial zone, the setback from the street is only 35 feet.
From the right way? Or the
From
street?
the road right of way, it's only 35 feet in the commercial zone. So it's even less than that.
So this could be up 218 up by you, old Sweetsburg.
You might put it right there on the edge of the property line.
Pretty much, yeah, because 50 feet from the right away.
That'd be-
And the right of way, of course, there is much wider, so you're already gonna be much farther off the road.
I know where the right of way is, I plan up to it.
Or maybe just a smidgen over.
No, not at all.
But most of your county roads, you've got 66-foot right of way, whereas 218 is 200 to 500 feet right of way. It's significant, depends on where it's at, but 300 is about average for the right of way for 218, so it's significantly.
You're talking center to center, the whole width.
I'm talking about the whole width of the right of way. So it's already significantly farther from the edge of the road on 218 and 34 than it would be on other roads.
Any state road, basically.
Well,
78.
78 is about anywhere from 90 to 110. It varies a little bit, but that's, if you say 100 feet, that's pretty standard on most of your non-interstate type 4-lane paved roads. Is like I said, 90 to 110 is pretty typical. There are a few places, where we've got drainage and so on, where they can get wider, but
Right.
overall, that's roughly where those are at.
Well, considering the right of way, I guess, but especially on the major roads, this seems to be consistent. What are you thinking, Mark? You think it should be 100, 150?
And
I don't know, that's why I'm just throwing this out. for
Actually,
discussion.
down at the bottom here, state right of ways are,
80 feet from state right away?
Yeah.
60 feet from a county?
right.
Okay, so isn't that in contradiction then from,
No, this is talking, up here, this is talking about the perimeter of the project.
okay,
So that could even be farther from the right of way, if the perimeter of the project is not up to the right of way, that could even increase.
Okay.
So from the county road, it's gotta be at least 60 feet from the right of way and 80 feet from a state highway.
down there, when we talk about a secure fence, do we have, is there a definition for security fence?
No. But there's two ways to look at it. You could define it, or you could leave it subjective so it can be looked at in your site plan for individual projects. You know, 'cause it's a different project, could, you know, what's secure for one project may not be secure for another project.
Okay. I wanna go back just to number 3 there on screening, Joe, so screening is really a buffer, right?
The buffer, and this is one we'll have to keep in mind, because right now, and it's still coming up, even though the legislature has convened, they're still talking about it, kind of still getting debate on it. They're looking at not allowing us to do landscape buffers for anything, which I don't agree with, but.
Agricultural too?
Well, they're talking about, like, say you've got a residential area and a commercial area, and we would say you've got to plant trees or bushes or so on to
Air
separate those two
dispersal.
areas, and they're sort of looking at making it illegal for us to do that. I don't understand that, but it wouldn't be the craziest thing they've done.
Okay.
So, it's still very much at the forefront right now. It did not get through, but like I said, I'm still getting updates on it even through the summer. It hasn't gone away.
Kind of
I think-
strange, because even Iowa State's doing research on what you do with hog confinement buildings and some kind of a buffer, not just from
Well,
a
see-
visibility, but from an odor standpoint.
But so they're not required for,
No,
but you can get points for doing one,
right,
so.
okay, alright, yeah.
Yeah, air column
You're,
dispersal.
and that may be why they're not looking at those kind of buffers, because they're not required.
Okay.
They're only, like I said, if you need points and a buffer will get you the points you need, then you can put a buffer in, but you don't have to.
What's kind of a big deal.
That's just one to kind of keep an eye on to see what they may or may not do.
Chad, you had mentioned, noise, so that's one thing that we need to research and find out more about.
You know, a bush or a tree planting, that type of thing, that disperses noise to a degree too, as well as odors of a confinement area, so, and observation, it would, you know, reflective light, you know, glare, that type of thing.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah, see, we've got it in here as 45 decibels,
Yep.
and from everything I've seen, I can't imagine, I'm not sure what could possibly be in a solar array that would exceed 45 decibels.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll ask again, as I talk to those folks at Access Energy, and make sure that we have that covered so that we all understand what could potentially come out of that from a vibration or whatever, and reference that back to what we see today with, power lines and transformers.
You know, some transmission lines, I mean, you can hear the
Yeah, the humming, the vibration or whatever.
vibration, hum, whatever you will call it. Okay, installation and design number 7, 137, speaks specifically about the glare. You know, to residences, adjacent properties and adjacent roadways. So.
So you have a suggestion on that one?
Oh, I think it's, I mean, I think that's a common sense approach that should be a requirement, if at all possible. I mean, until they specifically say, no, you can't do this, I think we ought to go towards the goal of having a like a perimeter screening type of thing to keep down glare, to keep down visual effects, to keep down, reflective heats, things like that, so. If you drive by and, there's a whole array of panels out there, reflective sunlight back in the driver's light, you're talking about liabilities and things like that.
I
It
mean,
wouldn't
this
be-
prohibits them from having glare that would affect the roadway.
Well, that's what I mean, and by a screen or a tree or a shrub
Or just the angle of the
yeah.
of the thing. I mean, this doesn't tell them how they have to do it, it just says that they have to do it.
Can't have glare.
You can't have
You
glare.
can't have glare, period.
And how they decide to prevent that glare. I guess we'll have to look, they'll make their site plan and we'll look at it and see if we agree, that that's going to do as they say.
And on road use agreements, this is pretty much the same. Did you pick this up from what we talked about in the other wind stuff? As far as the road use overall? So there's some consistency there.
I think Jake would have to be asked to specifically look at that and give his thoughts.
I think it should mirror the other, right?
I do too. That's why I was asking that question. Obviously,
Make
because
sure
they're,
it does.
yeah. Because we should be tied together, not with the use agreements, but also with any of the verbiage on the financial escrow and all of those types of things as well.
Okay, then you just brought up a point I was gonna bring up later. On the solar, and even batteries also. Do we know, when they are no longer in use, where can they be?
Not in our county.
No, they can't, our county is right. I mean, is that a concern to us?
I think it should be.
I mean, some of the, early on, the solar panels had a hard time with getting them decommissioned, or where they could be put, like, I think some of the newer ones might be a little better, but I don't know enough about it. I know, I had a supervisor from one of the counties that be very aware of that.
I'll talk to Bruce on that and
Bruce
see
on
what
that,
his thoughts
please.
are, like,
And I think the battery
Disposal.
would be the same way too.
of the panels themselves.
The panels
because of the
themselves,
photovoltaic cells as
the
well as
farm
the
could
battery.
stay there and they just wanna upgrade the panels.
Right.
And so what happens to the panels then?
They can't get piled in the corner, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There is a set that says something there about, outdoor storage and stuff. Whether we have that as far as I just don't wanna come back, the county has a liability of these
Mhm.
things.
And I don't see this specifically in here on 14 and 15, we talk a little bit about drainage and soil erosion, and I know that some of those folks that I've talked to in Lee County specifically, like, their contract didn't talk anything about retention ponds, but if you go down 16 towards Denmark, almost every one of those that's on a hillside has a retention pond, and those landowners didn't know anything about it, so my concern is the way that those folks are interacting here, and we don't have anything that says, and I don't know how to do this exactly, if we tie it back to the NRCS, or somebody, but the ability to make sure that we're not disrupting the natural flow of waters around those solar panels to better enhance their environment and do damage to the rest of that, because if you look at that, it's pretty quick and easy to see, there's probably 8 or 10 retention ponds right there along the highway. And last week, they were full.
That were put in at the same time as
Yeah,
the
when they-
arrays were done.
Yeah, when they were clearing the ground, they built some retention ponds.
So are you going back to, on page 134, that you might wanna add, the local NRCS makes approval of this?
Are we looking about reducing the water running off because of the solar array not allowing that?
Because if they're on concrete, then you would have no absorption. The amount of absorption you have.
I don't think that they're setting them on a concrete, they may be setting the posts in concrete,
Yeah, most
but
likely.
I don't think that they're paving over them,
But,
over
don't
the
know.
area.
but to the point, they're creating retention ponds, and that was one of my bullet notes, Mark, just under notifications.
And there's a formula for how,
NRCS.
there's a formula for how much water displaced, right, and how much retention we need. I think though, if we're gonna start getting into water retention from, I think maybe we should set a point where any commercial project, once it exceeds X number of square feet, needs a retention pond. Although there's little we can do with that anymore because the state kinda cuts off the knees on retention ponds. So, and I'll have to do some checking into that. Because it kind of puts responsibility on the county to build retention ponds, not the developer.
And there's some ways to work with that, I think, obviously, if with the NRCS, if that's one of our bullet points here. With
I said
with the landowner as well as.
The state pretty much took that away from us.
Well, that's that's federal, so.
No, it's not, it's state law.
NRCS, I mean, no, it's federal, if they're gonna be tied to any type of usage, I think it would depend on whether or not those people are selling that property versus people that are actually leasing it.
Yeah, I think you'll wanna read through the code section from the state, cause it basically took the responsibility away from developers and put the responsibility in the county to pay for it. It was wrong, but the building lobby is large and powerful.
I'll check with Justin.
So you still go in there quite often, don't you?
Yeah, I was just thinking through the action.
Like
check with
Mount
Justin.
Pleasant has required all these retention ponds, and basically at this point, they can't do it anymore. They can't require the developer to pay for it. They can put them in, but it's gonna be us, the taxpayers, paying for it to do it.
They could deny the build plan then, if it didn't include that.
Probably not.
I don't know how they could cost shift.
They did it. We fought it for a good 4 years, but they finally, last year, they got it through.
Okay, so on page 134, where we're talking about notifications, I'll check with Justin, make sure that we know
See if there's any,
what he has to say.
any loopholes that we can work on, but they,
Well, not loopholes, but to just make sure that,
We're clear on what we're talking about.
yeah.
Okay.
because the MPDES permit basically just says that during construction, anything they're doing can't run off on the neighboring properties or onto the county roads. They have to have a plan in place, put up silt fences and whatever they need to make, they're not supposed to drag their mud out onto the county highway, although you see it quite a bit.
Well, some of that you can't help. Never guilty of that, Mark.
Nope.
Okay. I will follow up on that one. Where are we at?
So the review and approval procedures would be this, same as the wind then? Would that piggyback, would that be one of the issues that piggyback right with it?
You would hope, yes. Where are you at, Chad?
134.
I think both, Chad, you're gonna talk to Jack Hedgecock, you're gonna talk to the Alliant
Yep.
guys. I would talk to them both about the escrow and large escrows like that, if they think that that'll make the project unfeasible. See what their opinions are on that.
Basically, if an escrow is a game changer for a project like that.
Right.
Okay.
I'm gonna real quick grab a map I was printing when it became 10 o'clock.
Anything else on 135, Chad or Mark?
Actually, I think we got a lot to work on right now.
We do. Let's just do a little bit of follow-up. Get our ducks in a row.
Just do this. Real briefly, everything in the dark brown is a CSR of 60 and above on average. Kinda tells you where we're at with CSR.
Is it, are you taking our communities, Mount Pleasant?
Yeah, cause I mean, we don't have any jurisdiction in those.
Right, but that's what the yellow is, right, is
Right.
incorporated
The
areas?
Corporation lines.
corporation lines.
Oh, I didn't see the legend.
The yellow are corporation lines, so they're out of our jurisdiction. The pinks are floodplains, so I don't think we're gonna have anything built in floodplain. And this, I should have made it yellow or something, but these two purple lines are your two main high lines through the county. And those will be a factor as to proximity in a lot of cases. They like, the solar tends to like to be near,
So they can hook onto the line
so they
at
can
the
tie-
substation? Yeah.
right, so they can tie into the substation. So, it's just kind of a general reference map, because I think most of these questions are gonna factor into things.
So which ones did you say were the primary transmission lines?
Right here, this
Oh,
pink
this
one,
purple line,
I think it's purple, and this one.
Do we have to be concerned about natural gas lines at all with this?
I think, no, I can't see them having any real effect, as long as they're outside of their, you know, they've all got their easements.
Okay. That's what I thought, but I just didn't know.
Okay, we have a line over here by way of the.
I can, I can,
Here and here.
you've got an anhydrous line that goes this way, and you've got a main gas line that goes this way, and you've got a feeder here, and a feeder here, and a feeder, yeah, so, I could add those on to another.
No, it doesn't matter. I
I've
just-
got all those. But I think that their easements pretty much cover their concerns.
Okay. Good to know though, because obviously that high pressure, high volume liquid natural gas line up there is kind of a big deal.
So I'll let you guys roll that up for future reference.
We put it over there.
We'll have to put it over there, probably one that.
Or
I'll get it.
back to the wall, wherever. Okay, we got a lot to work on, as Mark said.
I think we can tie this up for today.
Anything else, Chad? You wanna-
Like I said, but, I'll get with Hitchcock, see what he has to say, you'll get with Access.
Bruce? Yeah.
All right.
I did want to just go back to the setback real quick.
Of what
Um,
page?
Yeah, get it here. There's 131, you have a setback.
136. Since you've got a perimeter setback and a road, say you're on 218, you've got to be 80 feet from the road right of way, and then they've also got to be 50 feet from the perimeter of the property, so that those two would be actually combined. So So you push that back 130 feet. Just, I wanna make that clear that that's how those two function together.
Okay, so under D, that would be combination of the two. So it's a minimum of 130.
So I would take that as a project setback, and then the project requires another 50 feet, unless there's a residential, which it requires 100 feet.
Right, okay.
So, yeah.
You know how far a semi pass can go out into the field?
Yes, I do.
It's a long ways. A long ways.
Tractor tires go a long way too, depending on how fast you're going.
It seems like they're way far out.
Yeah, I've dug a couple out of my patch, my hayfield. Okay.
All right.
More
Well, we'll set up another one for the future here. Once we get our homework done, we can go back at it.
Yeah.
Then you guys let us know when you're gonna do it. All right.
And if anybody's interested, I do have the names of 2 solar companies that have been communicating with people in the northern part
You
of
do
our-
have their names? I would like that.
Yeah, one is Demeter,
Demeter,
Demeter. They have a 1-800 number that is non-accessible and I can't find a location for them. However, they have been talking with some folks in the county on leasing versus purchasing. And then I have another one here, if it'll blow up for me. And it's kind of like a mom and pop thing. You know the name of it, Melanie, by chance?
I do not.
I'll send it to you, Chad. It's not one that, big enough where I can actually see it. But it's kind of like a mom and pop thing. But they do have an address and a phone number. I think they're trying to go somewhere out in Utah right now. But I'll send that to you. Okay.
Do we wanna talk about the 31st, do we wanna talk about ending that wind moratorium and extending the solar at that point?
Do we have a solar, or do you want to use the one that we've supplied to you, or do you want to get with Steve and talk about something, or what?
How do you guys wanna do it?
Okay, well, I don't want to end one without having one ready to go.
and in place by when it's ended.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you talk to Steve about it?
Yeah, I'll talk to Steve about it, but I think we should end the one.
Which is
with that.
Fine, as long as we have one to cover us for batteries and solar. So there's no gap in there.
Right, I think we just do it one right after the other.
Okay.
That's fine. Do you have a plan then for getting with the Planning and Zoning Commission?
I haven't yet, I'm kind of, get a good feeling of where we're going. Is this gonna be, do we have a fairly concise set of what we wanna do, or is it gonna be large? I think that's gonna inform the Planning and Zoning Commission as to where they're gonna go.
I think to expedite everything, that we need to get our homework done here, with the parameters that we want to work with before we give it to them.
Then they can take your work and look at it and see what their thoughts are on it, and they can make their suggestions.
We're gonna give them what we're comfortable with.
They know what you're thinking, and because in the end, you're gonna approve it regardless of what they may or may not do. So I think that they're gonna wanna be informed as to what you're thinking. And they don't wanna spend a lot of time working on things that you're not gonna be interested in.
Okay.
All right. Till tomorrow.
All right. We're adjourned.
Well, we never really worked.
Steve, you are correct, having went through solar, it is 100 kilowatt. If you get over 100 kilowatts, you get into taxation and tariffs and stuff like that, you become a generating station.
I did get that to pull up, you guys. It's called Down to Earth Investments LLC.